Hey, everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am back with another One Filmmaker, One Film. And today, my guest is,
Donald Farmer.
and thank you for being here. This is awesome that you are here. I really do appreciate it.
Hmm.
And you are one of the fathers of, SOV video, I would imagine. Am I correct on that?
Uh, yeah, I wasn't the first, but I was in it fairly early. Yeah, pretty early. Me and
And
Tim Ritter were, in it. He was ahead of me, and then I came in right after him.
yeah, I'd like to interview Tim also. So it's I've been interviewing a lot of like brand new people, but not the older people, and so I would like to get So I'm happy that you're here. So and I like your hat. So
Yeah, yeah. I just live 15 minutes from the distillery.
oh, okay. So is that a little
So,
bit of advertisement for them? Like after this video, you'll get a bottle of Jack.
I just have a bunch of their hats because I get one usually whenever I need another one. They have all these gift shops in Lynchburg.
Oh, okay. Should try to get them to sponsor you. That every time you put on the hat.
Yeah, I have some hats for my own movies, but I don't like the way they're shaped. They're shaped a little flatter, so I don't, even though they're for my own movies, I don't like to wear them just because they're not as well made a hat.
Do you prefer like the trucker cap or like the baseball cap?
Well, this kind, I guess.
Is that more of like the trucker cap? It's
I
kind of
guess
more
it's just
hard up front.
where you can read what it says at the top.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's more like trucker type. So, but yeah, it's good stuff. So, um, like I've done with other people, I like to show off my collection. And this is what I have. I got a stack about yay high, and this is actually the newest thing that I got from you. Well, I didn't get it from you. I bought it at a convention that was out here. And I thought, oh, I don't have anything from Donald on Blu-ray. So let me pick this up. And it's that Cannibal Hookers and Hooker with a Hacksaw double feature.
Yeah, that's from Culture Shock releasing, and they're going to be the distributor of my new movie, Debbie Does Demons. So, and they do a really nice job. They load the Blu-rays up with special features, and they do really nice slipcases.
Yeah.
They're a partner label of Vinegar Syndrome, so I'm working with two partner labels. I have them putting out those three movies: Debbie, Hooker with the Hacksaw, and Cannibal Hookers, and then I have Saturn's Core releasing my 1994 movie Red Lips, and
Oh,
they've
nice.
had they've had that out for a few months, but they're all partner labels of Vinegar Syndrome, so it all goes onto the Vinegar Syndrome website.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I really like this. This is a few days ago I rewatched Hooker with a Hacksaw, and I thought, oh, let me watch it on this instead of the DVD, and it looks good. Looks good and sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was the first movie where I had Casper Melted Air be the actual star. Because before that, I'd had her do a small part in Cannibal Cop, so she did good with her small part. So I let her be the star of Hooker with a Hacksaw.
And she was good. I like her. She's interesting. So
Yeah, she just did a new movie in I think in the Northeast somewhere, so she's still working.
oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of surprised not to see her in Debbie Does Demons.
Yeah, she's not been as available since she can't travel as much. She says she doesn't trust her car traveling the trip from Lexington, Kentucky to Tennessee as much. She used to have a more dependable car, but now she's not too confident about long trips. So
Sound
now, if you want her, you sort of need to shoot in her area.
kind of sounds
Whereas,
like we need to do a GoFundMe for her car.
yeah, before I would have her come to Tennessee all the time. So yeah, so if she gets a more dependable car, maybe she can shoot with me more.
Casper, start a GoFundMe. You need to be in Donald's movies again. So
Mhm.
that would be my word out there. And then I have the actual Cannibal Hookers. This is I actually have two versions of it. So there's this one,
Mhm.
and it's got the more art on the back here, and it's got a blank.
Yeah, that's the self-distributed one that we put out for for fans in Indiegogo Perks before it had the official release through Culture Shock. So that's the self-distributed version that we had for Indiegogo folks.
And I'm going to keep this one.
Also
So,
for the stars to sell to their fan followings. I know
okay.
Jessica, she sold about 100 copies just to her fans on Facebook.
Oh, wow. Nice. Well, then we have another one of those. And this one I actually gave to. It was nice seeing my name in the credits, and that's Hooker with a Hacksaw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the original DVD, and then so people can either get it that way or on the double feature with Cannibal Hookers. But if you get it that way, as a DVD, you get this nice bonus. You get the short Marquis de Sade movie that I made, which is only available on the DVD. It's a movie I made in 2003. In 2003, I directed a stage production in Nashville of the Marquis de Sade's play, Philosophy in the Boudoir. And then before our actors spread to far ends of the earth and forgot all their dialogue, while the dialogue was still in their minds, I did a short film version of the play. And that's what you get on that DVD. You get the film version of this play that I presented in Nashville at a local theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right down here. And
One of the few times I've directed a live stage show. It wasn't the first time I did it, but it was one of the few times I've done it.
oh, that's cool. Because I'll have to watch that. I haven't had a chance to watch all the stuff on this yet. Well, I think with this, I also got and I'll grab that quickly right here. I think you sent it with this poster.
Yeah, that's a poster we made up for Hooker with a Hacksaw.
And you signed it for me down there. I'm sorry, the background kind of messes it up, so I got to put it in front of me. But yeah, it's got your signature right down there.
Uh-huh.
And I really like this poster. There we go.
Yeah, so I believe that was for me by Jamie. Yeah, Jamie Nichols made that for us. He did the graphics. He was the cinematographer on Shark Exorcist, and he also edited that movie. And then he did posters for me after that. And he tragically passed away a couple of years ago at only the very young age of 49. So that poster for Hooker with a Hacksaw was one of the last things he did before he passed away. In fact, we had a horror convention in Manchester 2 years ago, and that was probably the last time I got to see him in person. So it was just a shock. You know, nobody expects a person to die with no warning at 49, and there was absolutely no warning. He was just fine one day and gone the next.
That's the strangest thing when those things happen. I mean, it's just Tuesday they're fine and Wednesday they're gone.
And it's happened to me twice in the last 2 years, because also one of the actors from Debbie Does Demons also passed away in his 40s with absolutely no warning. Josephus Hudson, who plays the Witchfinder in Debbie Does Demons, he also passed away with no warning whatsoever.
Oh, wow. Man, really sorry.
His role in Debbie Does Demons was originally going to be bigger, and we had to rewrite the script when he passed away and change it, where we had to eliminate all the additional scenes that he had been scheduled to film. But fortunately, his flashback scene, I was able to use every bit of footage he shot for that. So folks know Josephus, they can see his final performance in Debbie Does Demons, because Josephus did 4 movies with me. He was in Hooker with a Hacksaw, and he was in a short movie I did called Hurt Doll, and then he was in Bigfoot Exorcist, which hasn't been released yet, and then he's in Debbie. So I always enjoyed working with him. But he was primarily known as a professional wrestler. He worked for Billy Corgan, the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan has his own wrestling organization, and Josephus was Billy's star wrestler, and also he was Billy's personal assistant. So he was a full-time employee of Billy Corgan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what he's mainly known for in the wrestling world.
Okay. Well, I'm sad to hear that. So that's yeah, but at least you got him on film, so that's good.
Yeah, so we do have, when people see Debbie Does Demons, that's his final performance. So I just, it was a shock. It was a complete shock to everybody. He was seemed like he was in perfect health one day and then just gone with no warning.
Yeah, it's I work at a storage facility and we hired a new maintenance guy. He's an older guy, but kind of a crotchety British guy. And one day he just took a nap, didn't wake up. Just that was it. He was at work Wednesday and just, where's Steve? And it's just like, Steve passed away in his sleep. And it's like, what? I just saw the guy yesterday. So strange. So
yeah, it's a little shock. At least he didn't suffer. It was just like no warning, very quick.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, everybody, so definitely, yeah, when you check out Debbie, Does Demons, definitely, remember that while you're watching it. So then the next one I have is another Cannibal Hookers.
Yeah, that's the original one that we shot in '87 in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I wanted to get both, so because I knew one was a remake, and this one has a picture on it.
Yeah, that's like an unauthorized version. The authorized version on DVD is the one that comes out from Eden Video. So if you see the one with the girl with her back to the camera on the cover, holding the machete, I believe that's the authorized version, and then the one you're holding is the unauthorized version.
Oh, so we'll put this down here then.
Yeah, so that's the one we don't like.
Oh, okay. So we'll just hide this over here then, and we won't discuss it again. These next two, I remember that you put on Facebook. You're like, hey, I'm selling these two films. They're signed and they're for X amount of money. I think you're selling for like $10 or something. And that's Vampire Cop, and it's from SRS.
Yeah, I have lots of copies of that, so I'm always ready to deplete my inventory of those. I seem to have more copies of that than of any of my movies.
Yeah,
just
you signed it.
Yeah, just because the distributor of it gave me a deal where I could buy out their remaining inventory. So I have quite a lot of Vampire Cop DVDs, and that does have both versions of it. It has my original director's cut, and then it has the release version, which are very, very different.
Oh yeah. Bonus features include never before seen director's cut and original theatrical version. It also has audio commentary on the director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut has that extra scene with Mel Arnold, the star of Blood Feast, that's not in the release version.
Oh, okay. And these look good. I mean, SRS is Ron Bonk's company, and he does a good job of stuff.
Yeah, he's put out several of mine. He put out Cannibal Cop on both Blu-ray and DVD, and he put out Vampire Cop on both Blu-ray and DVD. And then he put out all of my 1970s Super 8 short films in 2 Blu-ray volumes, Donald Farmer Collection Volumes 1 and 2. So those were really nice to see come out because those had been in my closet for decades, and I never thought I would be able to do anything with them until Ron came along and said he wanted to put out my Super 8 shorts from the '70s, and I said, sure.
Yeah, I want to get those. I'm slowly building my collection here. So, and you mentioned Cannibal Cop, and so here it is right here.
Yeah, that's the first movie I made with Casper, and it also stars Jason Crow, who's a big cult following, and he's the Cannibal Cop of the title. And we shot, and it also has the same female lead from Shark Exorcist, and we shot Cannibal Cop mainly in Nashville. The fair scene was shot at the Nashville State Fair, and we also shot at the oldest cemetery in Nashville, and so we shot like all over Nashville for that movie.
Cool. And this one you personalized to me, so it's to John Best Wishes, Donald Farmer. So that's cool. So I like that. And then we got the inside. There's Casper right there, getting bit all over the place. Now I have to ask you, because I also noticed this with Debbie Does Demons. Do you consider yourself to be a political director? Because I've noticed there's a lot of political stuff in your movies, or at least comments.
Well, sometimes there's a little subtext, but not very overt. I mean, the first movie of mine that was about something other than the horror was Play Cannibal Hookers, which was about how people will prostitute themselves out of their need to feel like they're in a fashionable group or in a group that they aspire to be in. So, what represented that was these girls that are willing to humiliate themselves to be in this elite sorority group. And so it was sort of applies to a lot of areas in life where people are really willing to degrade themselves in order to achieve some goal that they've set for themselves, which may or may not be a worthwhile goal. So that was
Yeah.
the first time movie that was about a social subject.
Yeah, there's with Debbie Does Demons that there's a comment about Republicans, which I found to be funny. So it was just like, oh, okay, okay, he's a political director, I think. So,
Oh yeah, we couldn't resist that.
well, and I made this up. I don't know if you saw that I put it on Facebook because this was Cannibal Cop, but I thought this was funny, and I knew exactly who this was aimed at. I'm not going to say the actual signs that they put up, but it's the Westboro Baptist Church. And they have a sign that's similar to this, but it's very degrading. But this one is God hates cannibals.
Yeah, we had this girl distributing these flyers in Cannibal Cop, and yeah, she might be a more a kindred spirit to Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, who are completely evil and are
Yeah,
I believe
there's this really depraved group that they'll protest at the funerals of military veterans and do all sorts of disgusting things.
yeah, and it's they have signs that are very similar to this, except they don't say cannibal. They say something else, and it will say like God hates. I'm going to say gays. I'm not going to say what it actually says because I don't want to. But they look very similar to this, and it's from the grandfather who I know who died, and then it just goes down through the sons, the daughters, the kids. It's horrible. I mean, these people are absolutely horrible.
Yeah, so there was that in the air that I was very conscious of when we decided to put that little storyline into Cannibal Cop just for fun.
Yeah, I think that it works well because he keeps fighting everybody, and kind of like Night of Living Dead is communism, and then Dawn of the Dead is consumerism. Day of the Dead is like the decadent 80s of it. You can kind of apply all of these metaphors to all these movies. And which I don't think a lot of people get. I don't think that they understand that horror is actually a really good way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciated it when she was handing out those flyers because I knew exactly what that was. And I'm like, oh, I got to make one. And then I made one at work and I took some pictures of it and put it up on Facebook and stuff, seeing if people would get it. And so, I mean, please continue to do that. I think it's because I am not on the right. I am very much to the left. So I find
when we were filming that scene with Elaine Huntington, the actress who is passing out those flyers, we would have her on the sidewalk in downtown Tuscaloosa, Alabama, right along the street by the University of Alabama, and we would have her interacting with complete strangers who didn't know they were in the movie and giving these flyers to strangers just to see how they would react.
That's funny. And then the next one I got is Dorm of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was shot half in Los Angeles and half in Tennessee. Yeah, that one was one where we really didn't have the budget we needed for that to do that movie right because all of our budget was spent on the Los Angeles scenes. So then when it came time to do the Tennessee scenes, we had already run through our budget. So the Tennessee scenes were shot in the cheapest of cheap fashion. So the footage doesn't really match up very good because the LA scenes have much more production polish to them than the Tennessee scenes.
Oh, okay.
But it was still fun to do, although I know the father of one of the actresses was really upset when he finally saw it. He didn't appreciate his daughter being in the movie. So, but the other actress that was in it, she was very happy about it. Jackie Hall. In fact, she enjoyed making it so much. As soon as we wrapped, she told me, "Well, when are we going to do another movie?" And I jokingly told her, "Oh, well, I guess as soon as you go out and raise the money." And she took me at face value, and she ran out, and within a week or two, she had raised 30 grand for me to do Chainsaw Cheerleaders. So
And
she became the producer as well as the star of that one.
there we go. Chainsaw Cheerleaders right there. So I did watch this, and I watched that the behind the scenes stuff and everything. So yeah, these were shot not back to back, but just one right after another.
Yeah, that's probably the best part of Dawn of the Dead is the documentary of behind the scenes footage. But Chainsaw Cheerleaders, we had a more adequate budget, so Chainsaw Cheerleaders is a more polished looking movie because we did have an adequate budget for what we set out to do.
Yeah, it looks like Tiffany Shepis is in both, Jackie Hall. So yeah, you got some of the same people in here. James
the big
O'Rear.
In Dawn of the Dead, Tiffany Shepis' salary was our main expenditure, whereas in Chainsaw Cheerleaders, we paid her exactly the same as the first movie, but in that one, it wasn't like that was our entire budget. We had plenty of money for other stuff too, and we were able to have a couple of grand in our budget to hire a CGI guy to do a certain CGI shots that were not able to do with practical effects, like the demon serpent slithering through Debbie Rashawn's body and popping out her neck. We couldn't really do that practically, so we had to do that CGI.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch that one yet, so I'm going to. And then the last, oops, sorry.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of that, the CGI scene with Debbie Rashawn and the demon serpent that she mistakes for a vibrator.
Oh, that is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is Shark Exorcist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was shot. That actually was shot over a couple of years. We shot that very slowly. We would shoot a little bit, and then maybe months would go by before we'd shoot a little bit more, and then shoot a little bit more, and it just kept on like that for 2 years till we finally had the whole thing shot, which is not a good way at all to make a movie because it tends to have a lot of disjointed scenes. So I'm not really very happy with how it turned out, but for some weird reason, it turns out to be one of my better known movies, especially after Stephen King was promoting it on Twitter and mentioning it to all his 7 million followers. And then also it had a lot of attention from debuting at the Cannes Film Festival and getting written up in a lot of industry articles that covered Cannes. So it got a lot of disproportionate publicity, much more publicity than some of my better movies, just because I guess that people love the title. You know, it always pays to have a high profile, catchy title.
Well, yeah, and I think Stephen King's quote was, "Shark Exorcist is a real movie."
Yeah, so that's sort of like in the middle, neither good nor bad. It just says a statement of fact. And it did draw us zillions of fans on Twitter, a lot of them from Japan. I found out because of that we had this big Japanese following. And because of that, Japan suddenly wanted to get into the Shark Exorcist business. And so they had originally released it in a bare bones edition in DVD, but after the Stephen King quote, Japan put out 2 deluxe editions of Shark Exorcist, and the last one was really deluxe. It had my commentary, and it came with an option where you could also get a keychain and a T-shirt and a magazine. It even had the script of Shark Exorcist in paperback form in both Japanese and English. So they really went all out with the extras.
Damn, I want that. Wow. What does
one copy of it? Yeah, that's the first time I've ever had a paperback book of mine published, and it was the script in both English and Japanese. So that was quite a thrill to see them do that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing this is the Wild Eye releasing. I'm not seeing anything listed on the back here for special features.
No, the Wild Eye only has, I think, the trailer, but
yeah.
The Japanese version has this commentary that I recorded, which is only available on the most recent Japanese DVD.
Wow. Great cover, too.
Which you used to be able to order from Amazon.jp, the Japanese Amazon site, although I don't know if it's sold out yet, but that's where you could at one time order it, was from Amazon.jp.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. So, because I think that's how I originally saw it, was the Wild Eye releasing video. Because how can you not own a movie called Shark Exorcist?
I've never had a distributor do so many extra products that they released in connection with the DVD, putting out the T-shirt, the paperback book, and the keychain all in connection with the DVD.
Yeah. I mean, that's really great. I mean, what I have is, and I think once again, you were selling this on Facebook. So I got the poster and you signed it down there. You know, to John, best regards, Donald
Yeah,
Farmer.
that's one we made ourselves, a poster using the art from the American DVD.
Yeah, it's a great poster. I mean, it's a great cover. So, I heard that there's a Shark Exorcist 2 coming.
Yeah, it's completely finished, so we're just
Oh,
waiting for it to be released. But I've given it to Wild Eye, and it's up to them when they put it out, but they have it.
does Bigfoot Exorcist have anything to do with Shark Exorcist?
No, it's just another Exorcist movie, but they're not connected.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, and
It's just
now,
about a
yeah, I mean, you could put them back, side by side. I mean, that's fine, and just enjoy two Exorcist creature type movies.
yeah. Wild Eye likes to put out 3 packs of 3 movies that have similar themes. Like they put out Shark Exorcist in a 3 pack with 2 other shark movies. So maybe one day they'll put out Bigfoot Exorcist in a package with 2 other Bigfoot movies, since they've got
I
several
have
other
that.
Bigfoot. They
I
have
ha-
several other Bigfoot movies they represent.
yeah, I have the it's Raiders of the Lost Shark, Shark Exorcist, and Sharkenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I have that. Yeah, it's in my Wild Eye collection somewhere. Um, yeah, so okay, looking forward to that then. And now the main event, the real reason why you're here, is to talk about your new film that is coming out in a couple months, and it's called Debbie Does Demons. And the film runs a very nice and clean 1 hour and 14 minutes and 4 seconds. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
not making it 2 hours. I think movies are perfect around that time. So it
Yeah.
works very
Oh,
well.
well, under 20 minutes. That's a little long.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I did make one movie once that was 2.5 hours, but that was because the producer told me to. He actually wanted it to be 3 hours, and I only managed to make it 2.5 hours. But then that was my Civil War movie. But then when we gave it to our distributor, the distributor refused to release it at that length. So they chopped it in 2 and made it 2 different DVDs because they would not put out a. I told my distributor that nobody would release it in the 2.5 hour version, and so the only time it was ever shown in the 2.5 hour version was when it was shown as a program on this obscure cable channel called the B Movie Channel, which I don't
oh, I
even
know
know if
that.
they're
Yeah.
still around. They showed the 2.5 hour version, but then after that, it's only been available as the 2 separate movies, which have a little bit of overlapping footage.
The nice thing with Cannibal Cop on the disc is you do a retrospective, and that's brought up. So kind of, I think it's what from like your first film all the way up to where you are at that point, and it was a good retrospective.
Oh, on the commentary.
Um, you're holding it's video, and you're like you're filming this the posters, or that could be like the DVDs, and you're
Oh
kind of
yeah,
just going
that
through all
yeah
your
yeah.
films. I like that. I thought it was nice. Once again, it was short and concise, and got to the point, and I enjoyed it. So I now know a little bit more about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, and my first movie that's been commercially released was exactly 50 years ago. That because Despondent Yearning, or Super 8 short, was commercially released by SRS Video in that Blu-ray collection of my Super 8 shorts. So even though it's been 50 years since my first commercially released movie, I did have a 10-year period where I didn't do anything. So I really haven't been working on doing movies for 50 years. I've really been doing movies for 40 years, because I had from 76 to 86, I didn't really do anything at all, except that's when although from 83 to 86, I was working for Fangoria and doing my fanzine, The Splatter Times. And then in 86, I decided to get back into movies and make my first feature, Demon Queen.
Oh, good, good. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like you were doing something, not
Yeah,
just
I was doing
sitting
something,
around,
just not doing
not
features
doing
or short.
films. Yeah. Well, then is Stratosphere Entertainment Production, is that your production company?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We started using that name in the 90s when I was doing these movies in Georgia with this Georgia producer, and then I just kept using the name. And so, yeah, we started it when I was doing these four movies in a row for this Georgia company, where we did the serial killer movie Deadly Run, which I co-directed, and then the last three I directed by myself. Compelling Evidence, which was a murder mystery, Vicious Kiss, which was an erotic thriller, and Demolition Highway, which was an action movie. That particular producer would not let me do horror movies, even though the first movie was a serial killer movie. He didn't consider it a horror movie. He wouldn't let me do anything horror, or especially anything with monsters or supernatural. He specifically said he only wanted murder movies and action movies.
Huh. Okay. Just not a fan, I guess.
Yeah, I tried to explain to him that it would be better for marketing if we did horror movies, because I said we were doing low budget movies. At least horror films have a built-in audience, and there's not much of a built-in audience for low budget, no name action movies the way there is for a horror movie. There's not a lot of fan publications for super low budget action movies, whereas there's tons of magazines that support horror movies of all budget ranges. I went over and over this with him, but I couldn't convince him.
What you gonna do?
After I finished doing these four movies with him, the first thing he did on his own was hook up with the director of The Boogeyman, Uli Lamel, and made a sci-fi movie with Uli Lamel.
Oh wow, I love The Boogeyman, the original. Love that film.
Yeah, so he immediately hooked up with Uli and did this sci-fi movie with him, which I guess was okay to him. He didn't want to do a horror movie, but he was okay with sci-fi.
Okay. Oh, is that Brainwaves by chance?
No, Brainwaves was before this. That was with Keir Delay. No, this was some UFO movie that Uli Lamel made right before he started doing all the 3-day wonder movies for Lionsgate.
Yeah, I remember watching The Boogeyman in the theater, and I loved it. I think I saw it twice when I was a kid. My mom took me to it, and then
yeah, Uli Lamel had that early period. Uli Lamel's career is in three phases. Phase one was when he's in Germany acting in Rainer Werner Fassbinder movies. Phase two is when he came to America, but is making decently budgeted 35 millimeter theatrical movies like Cocaine Cowboys, The Boogeyman, Evansville Terror, Brainwaves, 35 millimeter movies that have decent budgets. And then phase three was toward the end of his career when he starts doing shot on video 3-day movies for Lionsgate.
Oh, okay. All right. I noticed that he did like a bunch of like serial killer stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, his most famous one was the one that he did with called The Tenderness of the Wolves.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That was early in phase two of his career. That was one of his first directing jobs as soon as he, well, that was still while he was under the influence of Fassbinder. I believe Fassbinder produced that or helped with it in some way, but Lamel directed it.
Yeah, I have a bucket list of stuff I'm trying to find, and The Boogeyman is one of them with the Jerry Gross credit. I remember it being on the VHS tape. I think it was like Wizard Home Video, but now all that stuff is cut.
Yeah, so, well, a lot of the Jerry films that were distributed by Jerry Gross's company Cinemation, some of them are coming to light after decades of obscurity, and some of them are still obscure in the original Jerry Gross versions. Of course, the original Jerry Gross versions is usually not the original version. Like Jerry Gross distributed this movie called Grimm's Fairy Tales for Adults, which there's so many versions of that movie because it was originally a German movie released under an original German title. And then when Jerry Gross got his hands on it, he completely changed the music and re-edited it before he would put it out under the Cinemation banner. And then I think there's a third version of it where they completely changed the title and called it something else. And it played drive-ins all over the South under this alternate title where it was no longer called Grimm Fairy Tales for Adults. So, but and Jerry Gross, the one Jerry Gross obscurity, which has most successfully seen the light of day recently, was his X-rated movie Whirlpool from 1970. That recently came out from Arrow Video in a box set of the films of Jose Larraz, along with his more well-known movie Vampires, about the two lesbian vampire girls that haunt this castle. And so anyone who wants to see his movie Whirlpool, which has been unavailable for years and years and years, except on a really fuzzy looking YouTube upgrade, you can finally get a pristine copy of it from Arrow on their Blu-ray box set. But there's still a few Jerry Gross movies that are kind of obscure.
Okay, okay. And one of the things that I like about your films and are the credits. I really and Debbie Does Demons is one of those ones that has kind of the like a grindhouse kind of animated feel to it, and so your credits are really cool.
Yeah, Logan Winton made those credits for us. He's our sometime editor, and even he didn't have time to edit Debbie Does Demons, but I hired him specifically just to make those credits because he is the man when it comes to making credits. For a couple of my movies, for Hooker with a Hacksaw and Cannibal Cop, he was the editor where he edited the entire movies and made the credits. But for the new one, and then he didn't have any involvement with Shark Exorcist 2. Those credits for that one were made by Tim Ritter, but I brought Logan back for Debbie just because even though he didn't have time to edit it, I wanted him to at least make the credits for it. And so he said, he would do that. So anytime a Logan is available and has time to make credits for me, he'll always be my go-to guy.
Yeah, they're really cool. I was so I definitely noticed that
he's a graphics wizard.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the old Roger Corman credits of when he would do the animated credits for a lot of like the sci-fi stuff that he did, and so I really enjoyed those. So and the music, I like the music a lot.
Oh yeah, we're really happy with that. So yeah, Debbie Does Demons is one of the most movies I'm most happy with how it turned out. It's very straightforward, a very linear storyline with a lot of forward motion and not very much padding at all. One thing I've read about reviews of some of my previous movies is they complain that they think there's specific scenes in them that are padding. Like people complained about Hooker with a Hacksaw, saying the scene where Casper is in the Halloween store trying on masks. They thought that scene was just put in there for padding, although I thought it was fun to watch Casper put on all the Halloween masks. But some people thought I just put that in there to stretch out the running time. I guess people that are less interested in Casper than I am, I thought it was interesting to watch her do that. So we made a point in Debbie Does Demons try to have no scenes that could be construed as padding. And we wanted to have every scene kind of advance the storyline and try to see how tight we could make the movie and still make it have a full 75 minute running time.
Yeah, it flowed.
I'm happy with how it turned out, that we were able to, I think, accomplish that goal.
Yeah, I think you did. I liked it. So I think that it flowed and it didn't bore me. I watched it all the way through in one sitting, and where some movies I gotta pause it for a little bit or turn it off and then come back. And so I definitely enjoyed this one. And
I think a lot of what keeps it interesting is the actors in it are really good. I already knew that Jessa Flux was really capable of handling lots of dialogue, and she knows how to deliver dialogue in a really entertaining way. And she's always very serious about studying for her part and learning her lines, so that when she comes to the filming days, she's not having to be fumbling around with the script minutes before we're supposed to shoot. She knows her part down cold. Then we had a couple of new actresses, Morgan Thompson and Angel Bradford. They were also just as disciplined as Jessa, and also were really serious about knowing their parts and really bringing their parts to life and performing with a lot of animation and giving really up high energy performances, which is important. And then I had one of my favorite actors, Ford Windstar, who has been in every movie of mine from Cannibal Cop to the present. And lately I don't do a movie without him. And then we also had, he's always, super great. If we have any kind of male part at all, we always like to call in Claude. And then we also have Adam Freeman, who I'm working with a lot lately, because Adam is the executive producer and director of the new remake of Scream Dream that is shooting this year.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, that's well, and you still have like Tim Ritter's in here too. He was one of the editors. I see you and Tim.
Yeah. Tim has worked on the last two movies as an editor, and Tim also does the sound effects and the music. He supplies the music. A lot of times he can go through library music or get original stuff, but he obtained a lot of the music for Debbie Does Demons, but not the main theme. The main theme, I had an actual composer do the main theme.
And
So the music you hear over the titles, that was music from our composer Mike, whose last name I can't pronounce, Mike Tribulak or something. I'm afraid of saying it; I'll pronounce it wrong. But anyway, if you look it up on IMDb, it's Mike, and the last name starts with a T.
Mike T.
And he did a really good job with our main theme.
Yeah, I like that theme. I went back and watched the credits twice because I like the music and I like the art that was in it. So, now you're listed as a writer and director. How did you come up with the idea for Debbie Does Demons?
Well, I mean, I wrote 2 complete scripts for it. We had this one complete script that we had to jettison when Josephus died because the original script had his Witchfinder character was the main villain in the movie, where he survives the flashback area and comes back, and we show him in the present day still causing mischief. And so in that version, Jess's character was the secondary villain and he was the primary villain. And then when he passed away, it required a complete rewrite of the script. So the script was just completely rewritten. Pretty much all of the scenes except Josephus's flashback were completely redone. And so the new version has Jessa as the primary villain. And she plays Camilla Karnstein, who is a witch from 300 years ago who's brought into the present day through a Ouija board ceremony. And then the main heroes of the movie, these 4 kids, they have to try to get rid of her. And for that part, I was inspired a little bit by Fright Night, but instead of having some kids seek out a horror TV host, a horror movie host, like they sought out Roddy McDowall to help them get rid of a vampire, in our movie, these kids are seeking out a late night paranormal ghost hunter host to help them get rid of a witch.
Which is
so,
Debbie.
So Fright Night was a big influence. So the witch they're trying to get rid of is Camilla Karnstein, and the late night TV paranormal host is Debbie. And then in the movie, her late night TV show is actually called Debbie Does Demons.
Yeah, that's you even do one of those kind of like 1-800 numbers and to like call into the show and all of that. There's a couple like fake commercials in there too.
Yeah, and then there's also examples of other TV episodes that Debbie presents, where we have a couple of her other episodes of Debbie Does Demons. So we show 3 episodes of Debbie Does Demons within the context of the movie. So you see the first episode where she gives the history of Camilla Karnstein, which is what motivates the kids to try to summon her with a Ouija board. And then throughout the movie, we see 2 more episodes of Debbie Does Demons. So we get really familiar with her fake TV show by the end of the movie.
Yeah, actually, I said 1-800. It's actually 1-900-69-DEMON is the phone number to call.
Mm-hmm.
Have you actually tried calling that number?
No, no. I haven't talked to anyone who has, but I guess it'd be interesting to try.
I wonder what would happen. Would you actually maybe get Debbie or a demon?
I don't think you'd get Debbie.
Maybe a demon. You never know. So what was your, if you don't mind me asking, what was your budget on this?
Well, we raised $6,000 on Indiegogo, and we pretty much spent all of that. So then we spent some of our own, so probably about $8,000 altogether, plus the $6,000 from Indiegogo, plus another couple of grand. So I would say about $8,000.
Okay. And what was pre-production like?
Well, a lot of the pre-production was, first pre-production always first involves writing the script, and then it was especially long and drawn out because we shot Josephus's flashback scene with him and Jessa, and then he passed away, and then right before so it was a long period of downtime because then I had to completely rewrite the script from page 1 before we could resume shooting. And in the meantime, Wild Eye Releasing hired me to direct 2 movies for them. So we did 2 movies back to back for Wild Eye in the downtime. And then after I finished those two movies for Wild Eye, Bigfoot Exorcist and Shark Exorcist 2, which were actually produced by Wild Eye with me as a director for hire. Then I had to finish the script for WDS Demons, script number 2, and then the rest of the pre-production just involved, finalizing the cast. And the biggest, most important thing is also finalizing the crew. And for the crew, that fell into place really nicely because Bobby Knipp Jr., who had been an actor in Shark Extras 2, he wanted the crew that he was using for his movies in North Carolina to shoot it for us. So they did that and did a great job. And Bobby was the assistant director. And so the other big pre-production item that I had to handle was locations. So we knew we were going to shoot a little bit more at the cemetery where we had shot Josephus's final scene, which is called the Mount Olivet Cemetery, and it's the oldest, second oldest cemetery in Nashville, but it is the best looking if you want a place with lots of really old monuments that looks like you're filming a Hammer British horror movie. And if you want that Hammer British horror look, Mount Olivet Cemetery is the one in Nashville that gives you that look in spades. So that's what I wanted. I wanted a cemetery with very huge, impressive, super impressive monuments and mausoleums, and lots of mausoleums. So Mount Olivet delivered that, and so we filmed there. Then for our primary interior location, I did something I've done in 3 movies in a row now, which I just rented an Airbnb. It's much more effective than just begging one of the actors to let us shoot in their house like we used to do in the old days. So we just rented an Airbnb, because when you rent those places, you can get one that's the right size you need. And if it has several different rooms can be rooms in different characters' houses. Every room doesn't have to be in the same house. And also since they're Airbnbs, they're not really cluttered up like a normal house would be. So it's not like you're having to move things out of the way or get rid of family photos, and redress the room before it's fit to shoot in. Those rooms are ready to go as soon as you walk in, and you're just ready to shoot. Then you just tidy them up before you leave, and that's it.
That sounds like a much easier idea than trying to get
We're
somebody.
doing with the new Scream Dream, we're running 2 Airbnbs. Only, even though the one that we used for WDS Demons is by far the nicest Airbnb I'd ever rented. It had this really great living room with a vaulted ceiling, really nice big high ceiling, and it had pillars in the framing the doorway that led from the front door breezeway into the living room. It had these white pillars that looked really impressive, but that's nothing compared to the Airbnbs we've got reserved for Scream Dream. We've got these super fabulous looking, since we have a larger budget for Scream Dream, right now we've raised 18 grand, I think, on Indiegogo. So part of that's going to go to these super nice locations.
It's interesting how film has changed. I mean, just what we're doing right now, you can interview people, you could shoot a scene on it, and now, like you mentioned, instead of begging somebody to use their house, you just rent an Airbnb.
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, in the 90s, when I was doing these 4 movies for this company where we had big budgets, where we had $250,000 budget per movie, I would go out and I contacted the Georgia Film Commission, and I told them to give me a list of every large mansion in the Atlanta area available for movie rental. So they gave me a list, and I toured these houses. One house I toured was a driving Mastasi house that had been used for that movie, and it was about $4 grand a day. So I ended up renting a really nice Italian villa style mansion that was $2 grand a day to be Brigitte Nielsen's house in that movie.
Oh.
Still, $2 grand a day is a little more than I would care to spend on an Airbnb. So for WDS Demons, we were able to rent an Airbnb for about $200, which is very reasonable considering how nice the house we got.
How many days did you shoot in it?
We shot in that house 2 days.
Okay, so 200 for 2, so like 100 a day.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's very reasonable. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you can make 1 day into 2 days because you don't have to check out till noon, so you can if you on the second day, if you just shoot the morning, you can get a half day's shooting before you have to be out.
Oh, so they do give you a time that you like, kind of like a hotel where you have to.
Airbnb is like a hotel. You have a check-in time and a check-out time. So yeah, it's just like a hotel.
Okay, okay. That's something that I've considered doing for one of my two things. So that's good to know.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, when I was making Cannibal Hookers, the original one in '87, all the house interiors you've seen are real people's houses. We would just get all the actors to volunteer their houses. So that's sometimes that works, but it's it's very inconvenient for some people when you barge in and want to film in their house. So it's something I would like to avoid if at all possible. We even did that
right.
on Cannibal. We were shooting in a real one of the Jason Crowe's house. Yeah, he was the star of the movie, and he let us shoot in his house for certain scenes.
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
And then Hooker with a Hacks. And actually, Cannibal Hooker's the remake. There's one scene with Casper where we filmed in my living room, and but I'd like to avoid that if possible because there's always clutter everywhere, and you have to go through and try to clean everything up before you film in your house.
I've always found it funny with like indie films and stuff where it's supposed to be like a young 20-something-year-old woman, and she's obviously in the director's house because he has like a ton of horror movie posters up and some like a Jason mask and posters and movies, and it's like, okay, this is clearly not her house. This is the director's house.
Yeah, at least the Airbnb we rented, it's supposed to be the home that three girls share with a guy, or it's supposed to be the home that four young people share, and it looked very tasteful, like a home that three girls would live in. So it fit perfectly the characters.
And I like your lighting. I noticed it also in like Cannibal Cop is that you kind of enjoy the creep show lighting, like a blue here, a green here, maybe having a red in the back, and so I like your lighting.
Yeah, it works really good as long as you're shooting in a high def format where the red isn't going to fall apart because the red has a can. The red is the most unstable color in the spectrum. So sometimes, if you're looking at a dub of a movie or not a very good copy, the red will smear. And if you're looking at it, the other colors will appear very stable and sharp, but the red will have a very smeary look to it sometimes. So you have to be very careful shooting with a red gel to make sure that you're shooting with a high def enough format that it's not going to have that smeary, blurry look. But yeah, I like shooting with blue, especially because blue is very stable, and blue and green are usually colors that are going to look effective. It's also sometimes good, like I did on a movie, Deadly Memories, with when I made that movie with Robert Zadar. We would take a couple of lights and put green gels on them, and then instead of aiming the gels at the actors, we would aim the lights at the wall behind them, which was a white wall, just in order to color the wall to make the wall behind the actors look colorful, so that it didn't look like such a boring wall. I did that also in Demolition Highway, where we would take note to light not so much the actors, but light the wall behind them, so that the wall would have this very colorful look. In fact, my director of photography on Demolition Highway, he went the extra mile. When I told him I wanted some color on the wall, he made a special gel box for me where he took several different colors and did a montage of all of them together into a gel light box, which he made with a cardboard frame. And then he put the lights between, he put this gel light box in front of my lights. And so it just gave the wall behind the actors this multicolored pattern that looked incredible. So that's really something that I don't like to overlook. If possible, I like to make sure the wall behind the actors looks interesting too.
Yeah, I agree. I made that mistake in a short film I did called Skull Evil, and there was just a blank wall right there. It's just like, oh, something should be there, and I didn't realize that till later.
I mean, if you don't have time to light the wall and you're going to have to shoot in front of a blank wall, the best thing you should do as a director is just to make sure your actors are not standing too close to that wall, and also make sure your directors, if you got more than one actor in the shot at a time, make sure they're not standing evenly next to each other. Make sure one actor is more foreground than another. That way, at least your shot has three layers. Your shot has a
Mhm.
foreground, a midground, and the wall is the background. Anytime you can do that, it's a way of compensating for a boring background to at least give your film the sense of 3D by having one actor clearly be closer to the camera than the other actor. I just hate having two actors in a long shot where they're standing next to each other and they're both the exact same distance from the camera. It makes for a boring composition. That's why in Debbie Does Demons, I have a lot of instances where I have Jessa, in particular, take a step or two closer to the camera so that she'll clearly be foreground and try to create this 3D effect.
Interesting. Okay, I never knew that, so thank you. Yeah, so I'll have to try that next time because yeah,
It's what in theater, when you direct a theater play, you call that having an actor go downstage. And so I use the same term when I'm doing it. I like having an actor go downstage, which in my case means move closer to the camera. Because as soon as you have two or three actors in a shot and one actor moves closer to the camera than the other, you're instantly creating a 3D effect because now your close actor is the foreground, your other actors are the midground, and your wall is the background. So it's just a way to create depth in your shot. And I'm a big believer that shots should have a feeling of depth in them.
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. No, thank you. So
Was a famous Italian director. The one way he would love to create depth in his shots was he would put items in the foreground, even if they were blurred out items. He would put items in the foreground so that the blurred out items in the foreground would at least create a feeling of a foreground, so that the actors would then be in the midground in focus, and then it was, sometimes he would shoot with very shallow focus so that only the actors in the midground were in focus, but the shot still had a feeling of depth because he had these blurred out objects in the foreground.
hmm, interesting.
Yeah,
Stuff I did not know.
you can get a lot of ideas about composition and lighting from watching Mario Bava movies.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's really good. Yeah, I love his stuff.
When I made Vicious Kiss, I gave my director of photography a copy of Mario Bava's movie What with Christopher Lee, and I just told him, light it like this. He did his own approximation of a Mario Bava lighting, which was not exactly what I wanted, but at least he tried.
You can't fault him for that. So, um, now one of your characters plays with a Ouija board. Do you believe in Ouija boards?
I've never used one in my life. This is the first time I've even touched one, was doing the scene in the movie. So this was my first experience with a Ouija board.
Yeah, I make fun of people because it's Hasbro. It was a toy made for parlor games for rich people back in the day, and then it ended up in kids' shops. So it's like I don't know why people are all spooked out about them when it was a kid's toy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are very serious when they say you should never touch with them because you attract negative energy to yourself. But um, I just have never had any experience with them before, and using them as a prop for the movie. So I really can't speak from any Ouija board experience.
And what about nudity? Excuse me, Debbie Does Demons has there's a shower scene, but then there's a lot of nudity in the cemetery. How did you get away with that?
Um, well, we just thought that this was such a large cemetery. Mount Olivet Cemetery is a huge, huge cemetery, probably the most acreage of any cemetery in Nashville, and there's only one caretaker there at any one time usually. And so we just figured if whenever you could always hear the caretaker coming, the caretaker would be driving around in this vehicle making the rounds. And so whenever we'd hear the caretaker coming, we could always have the actress close her robe until the passed. And then when the caretaker was out of range, we could resume shooting. So it was very easy to get around the cemetery caretaker because you could definitely hear his car coming. And he did come by a few times, but he never stopped and never said anything to us. So it was obvious that he wasn't going to give us any trouble.
Okay. How did people react? Did like anybody walking around the cemetery happen to see it?
There was a cemetery going on. There was a sort of burial going on, a few hundred yards down the road from where we were, but they minded their own business and we minded ours. None of them ever came over or acknowledged it. I don't think they were really paying attention to us. So we had no trouble at all. Although the second time we had to film there for the movie's climax, I did have her put a top on just to play it safe
Yeah.
because I figured I didn't want to press my luck any further than I'd already pressed it.
Yeah, I did notice that she was covered, and so I thought, oh, maybe they got in trouble. Maybe
No, it was just like I figured I'd played
Oh,
Russian
pardon me.
roulette and I hadn't shot myself in the head yet, so why push my luck?
Yeah, yeah, good point. Yeah, got away with it a couple times, so yeah, you never know.
The only
But
time I had any trouble filming in a public place like this was when I was in Russia making a short for my movie Red Lips Bloodlust. We were filming one of the little stories because it's a multi-story movie, and we were filming at this place called the Summer Palace, called Peterhof, otherwise known as the Summer Palace of Catherine the Great or the Summer Palace of the Tsars. And it's a huge palace with gold statues and everything. So we were filming there with this super cute actress, and all of a sudden these policemen come over, and we think, oh, the Russian policemen are going to make us stop filming. But turned out all they wanted to do was flirt with our super cute actress. So
ah,
they basically just wanted to chat her up. So she
yeah,
talked to them and was friendly with them, and that made them happy, and they went away.
yeah, yeah. I had with Skull Evil is I was filming a skeleton on the ground that had clothes, and a cop walked up to me, and this is at my apartment. I pay rent here, so it's private property. It's so I think do what I want. But he came up to me. He's like, "What you doing?" And I'm like, I'm a college student. This is for an art project, for like a photography project." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he walked away. So I didn't want to say it was for a movie. So I didn't know if he was going to ask, "Do you have a permit or anything?" But it's like, no, go away. Stop.
Yeah, in 1993, I was making a music video for this New York band called The Voluptuous Horror of Karen Black, and we were filming it on the steps of the courthouse in downtown New York. And if anybody's seen their live act before, you know that the girls in this band, including the lead singer, usually perform only wearing a G-string where they're topless, but they're completely body painted. So you don't really realize they're topless unless you look really close because they're all body painted. And so we had her and two other girls in her group on the steps of the courthouse, again, only wearing G-strings and boots, but because they were body painted, we had like a policeman walk by while we were filming, but didn't stop or didn't talk to us because I guess at the distance he was looking, it looked like they were clothed because you really had to look close to realize that that was just body paint.
Yeah, sometimes that's done really well. It's fooled me. So it's just like, oh, she's naked. It's just, oh, okay. I didn't notice. So you never know. Oh, and you did get Casper in the film. I noticed that there is footage from Hooker with a Hacksaw.
Yeah, we got her in that way, even though she couldn't film any original material for the movie, but we did get her in that way as something they're watching on TV.
Yeah, so at least you were able to get her in that way. And the Republican line in it is he's a Republican. And I thought that was kind of funny. The boyfriend with like the demon with I have boyfriend demon car. I'm not really sure what that means, why I wrote it that way, but it's a line that
You're
made me
talking,
laugh.
yeah, that's the line delivered by Ford Windstar. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's funny. And you have like some good arm stuff in there too. You have like a furry claw arm, and then there's like a demon hand. Um, how
Yeah,
did
we have
you?
a lot of props from that movie made by various people. Our favorite prop in that movie is we had this baby demon puppet, which was made by
Yes.
Josh Link, who's a really great effects guy. He did effects for Fever 3, and he's done a lot of other movies. And so we had him create two things for this movie. He created the demon hands that Jessa wears when she's sort of doing a halfway demon transformation. And then he created the demon puppet, which, because I had this demon rat puppet in my 1988 movie Scream Dream, which people really loved. And a lot of people have commented about that was one of their favorite parts of Scream Dream was the puppet. So I thought it was high time I made a movie with another puppet since the Demon Queen puppet was so popular. But I wanted this to be a puppet that would outdo the Scream Dream puppet. And Josh came to the rescue and made this incredible puppet just for us, which I have right now. I'm looking at it right now. It's in my living room, prominently placed. I use it as a hat. I use it as a hat rack, and
Oh,
you know, for the demon scene, we had different actors at different times would operate the demon puppet to make the mouth go up and down. But usually Morgan was the one. If she wasn't in the scene, she would operate the puppet for us usually.
um, when you're on a set like the cemetery scene, and of course you have somebody who's topless and you have other actors and everything around, are people doing different jobs? Like, is somebody slate, somebody sound, or how does that work with you?
Well, Bobby was the assistant director, and then he had his crew. His friend was the cinematographer who would run the camera, and then that was pretty much the crew. And then we, because he had the you know I can't remember. Sometimes he usually had the mic in his camera. Sometimes we would use an external mic and have somebody hold a boom. But in the cemetery, we usually would use the mic on the camera. And then everybody else was just mainly actors who were waiting for their time to go on. We try not to have any unnecessary extraneous people when they're in the cemetery, especially because I want to have the smallest possible group so that we draw the least amount of attention to ourselves. So I usually hate filming with large crews because the more people you have, the more conspicuous you are and the harder it is to shoot. Like, for example, when I did these bigger movies in the 90s that had the six-figure budgets, we would very often have 20 or 30 person crews. And that, you know, turned out to be more of a headache than a help because, you know, we'd try to film in public and having such a large crew. You know, we're trying to film this scene at the steps of the Georgia State Capitol with Brigitte Nielsen, and we're drawing such attention to ourselves because our crew is so big that we have all these people standing across the street, you know, catcalling and making comments and ruining our audio
Oh,
while we're trying to film. So it's very difficult to, we had to have a PA go over and beg them to shut up. So, you know, I like to be as small a crew as possible so that we draw the least attention to ourselves. And in fact, if we have a small enough camera, I like to just make it look like we're there making home movies and deny that we're making a movie if anyone asks. I think that's the good way to go. Just say we're making home movies.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
You can't do that always if your camera is so big it's conspicuous. Our camera on Debbie Does Demons was such a large camera, we really couldn't use that excuse because it was a camera that nobody would use for home movies. It was so big. But movies like on you know, on Shark Exorcist, we had a few days where the camera was small enough we could use the home movie excuse.
It's a good excuse to give. So yeah, yeah. So that's another one. So student and home movies. So those work.
Well,
And
when we were filming the movie in Paris, The Erotic Vampire in Paris with Misty Mundy, we were filming inside
love her.
Notre Dame Cathedral with no permission. We just walked in and started shooting because I'd scoped it out before, and a lot of people were in there taking pictures in home movies. So I just told all of our actors and crew not to stand together, just everybody stand apart from each other so that we wouldn't look like we were all there together. And that way, if anyone asked about the filming, we could just say we're making home movies like everybody else. But nobody asked, nobody bothered us, so we had no trouble.
I don't think a lot of people care, you know, as long as you're not being disruptive, you know, or causing a scene. I think you could probably get
Yeah,
away
so
with a lot.
yeah, so no, so it turned out when we were in Notre Dame, nobody cared, and it turned out what we shot in there had sort of historic value because it was after we filmed in there that you know, more recently Notre Dame has caught fire, and now a lot
Yeah.
of what we filmed in there has been destroyed
Oh wow.
because of
But
the
you've got a
Notre Dame.
record of it.
So we made a record of what Notre Dame looked like on the inside before the fire destroyed a lot of it. You know, because Notre Dame is now undergoing a multi-year restoration to repair the fire damage.
Yeah, yeah. It's great that you got that record. I mean, that's they could even use that, you know, that footage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that many people have filmed in there before, but at least we have our own record. You know.
Yeah, true, true. With the cemetery, I noticed that one of the headstones that you went to, one of the large ones, your main one, it says Nicholson died 1882. And did you pick that Nicholson because of Jack Nicholson, or did it just look good?
No, mainly just because the aesthetics of it. Not it really didn't matter what it said.
I was imagining that with, with your succubus up there and she's topless, and you got the the witch finder and all that stuff and all this activity around this guy's tombstone. Like, I wonder what he must be thinking. Like, since it's 1882, like, did he ever imagine this type of thing would be on his grave?
Well, everybody can't be so lucky.
That's very true. Very true. And a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap this up. And then you have a Bloody Mary scene.
Yeah, we do at the very end. Yeah, we do have a scene that's inspired by that.
Is that like going to be in a sequel or anything, or was it just kind of for fun?
Oh, well, that's all, I guess. Whether there is a sequel, it all depends on how well the first one does, although people have already been saying that we should do a sequel, but I guess it all depends on how well the first one does.
Are you going to follow the Debbie Does Dallas and just kind of continue with using the same title but adding like little subtitles to it?
Somebody said we should do one called Debbie Does More Demons, but it all depends. I know it won't be my next movie because our next movie we're planning to do is well, we have two this year planned, which is Scream Dream that I'm co-producing, and then Maniac Cheerleaders, which I'm in the process of writing now.
And during the end credits, I noticed in the credits it says Demon Research Crew and then Hollowed Holes Crew. What are those?
Those are people who did the additional 2 TV episodes of Debbie Does Demons. The Hollowed Holes Crew was the second episode of her show, and the Demon Research Crew is the final episode of her show that you see shortly before the end credits.
Okay. And then
in the movie, you see 3 episodes of Debbie Does Demons. You see the Carmilla Karnstein episode, then you see the Vampire Hunter episode, and then you see the Succubus episode.
And what about the I just have it listed as Porn Ghost Hunters. What about that one?
That's just what they jokingly like to call the actors in the final episode of Debbie Does Demons.
Oh, okay. And so do you have an actual date for when the film is going to be released?
I just know it's you should be able to order it in May. By May, you should be able to order, is what Culture Shock tells me.
Okay.
So people who want to order it should be able to do that in May.
Okay, great. And is there any plans for like a theatrical or like a premiere, anything like that for it?
Not yet. We might do one later, but not yet. It'll be available on Blu-ray first. I do have a screening this month. Well, no, next month in April I have a screening, but my original Scream Dream movie is going to have a screening in New York City next month. But I don't know the details yet. I just know that it's scheduled for April, and the distributor is going to give me more details as it becomes available. Right now, they're telling me that they want me to do a live Zoom Q&A with the audience either before or after the screening. So I'm supposed to stand by in case to do that for the New York screening, but I don't yet know the venue or the date. But as soon as I know those things, I'll put them on my Facebook. Yeah, because the Scream Dream, the original, has already had the screening a few months ago at a Pennsylvania drive-in, and so now it's going to have a New York City screening, which is a lot of activity for a movie that's 35 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. And and then this will be my final question for you. What do you think is the difference between like when you started to now? Like, how have things changed for the better? Have they gotten worse? Like, what are your thoughts on how the media has changed over the years?
Well, the raw materials that you need to make a movie have definitely improved, because when I started, we had just come off that several decades of leading all the way through the end of the 70s, where if you wanted to make a movie and you wanted to have your movie seen by anyone, your only option was pretty much to shoot on 16 millimeter, blow it up to 35, or to shoot it on 35 millimeter and then make actual physical prints, which could be shown in theaters. Because outside of the theatrical venues, there wasn't a lot of places you could take a movie. I mean, TV channels would often take original programming that was not for theaters, that like the ABC movie of the week, but those were usually 35 millimeter productions made with large budgets. I mean, even Steven Spielberg got his start directing made for TV movies for major networks. So if you were an aspiring low budget filmmaker like my friend David Friedman, who produced Blood Feast, where you had a minuscule budget, he still used every penny of his minuscule budget to make 35 millimeter prints so that he could take his movies like Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs and show them in drive-ins. Those were the only viable venues then. And then starting in 79 and 80, when people started buying home video recorders, then it wasn't long after that, just almost a year later, that the home video market was created, where you could now suddenly buy movies and on VHS or beta, and then play them on your brand new home video player recorder. And so initially, the only movies you could buy were theatrical movies, but that made by major studios. But it wasn't long at all before distributors started accepting super cheap shot on video movies made by regional filmmakers. And you could make a movie now for suddenly just for a few $1,000s and sell it to one of these distributors and see your movie nationally distributed in video stores all over the country. So finally, there was this new market that exploded and that was created. And that's when I came in. I came in a few years after that when I saw that this market was hungry for product and there was more demand for product than there was product to supply. So it was the perfect time to make movies. So, that was the perfect environment to make movies in. The environment for making movies has never been as good again as it was in the 80s when there was such a demand for product. But today it's easier. The filmmaking side of it is easier because now, you have higher quality HD cameras that give you a much better image than you did when you were shooting on beta or on 3/4 inch or 1 inch or whatever. And also editing is so much easier now with nonlinear editing and everyone having editing software on their laptops, as opposed to what you had to do with the 80s, which was do a really grueling nonlinear edit, building your master from the head to the tail on one giant master tape, which is what I had to do for all of my early movies. This really horrible editing process that was very painstaking. People that are spoiled today by nonlinear editing don't appreciate how good they've got it. If they've never had to do it, if you've never had to do a nonlinear edit, you don't know how good you've got it nowadays. So I would say, you have to put the two things together to have the best of both worlds. Today, the materials needed to make a movie are better than they've ever been, but in the 80s, the climate for making a movie was the best, and it's never been that good again since, because now we live in a world where there's more product being made than there are distributors who can handle it. There's just there's too much product. Too many people are making indie horror movies. And so there's no longer this hungry demand for every single indie horror movie that somebody makes like there was in the 80s, where there was actually distributors wanting every single indie horror film they could get because there weren't that many of them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you 100% that people, 20 somethings don't even realize. I mean, when I went to film school, it was a flatbed and you got the film here, you got the sound here, you got the reel to reel here. And then when you were on set shooting 16, you only had, like a good minute or so of footage. And then when that was done, you had to stick the camera in the bag and put your hands in there and make sure no light got in. Because you never knew.
Yeah.
I mean,
I shot on film for several years. I mean, all the way from Vampire Cop in '79 through my Robert Zadar movie, Deadly Memories in 2000. I shot quite a few 16 and 35 millimeter movies. And that was the problem with all of them. Constantly having to change the reel when you run out of film, constantly having to have somebody stick their hand in a bag and change the reel. And the film ran out really quick if you're shooting with short ends to save money. And I only did one movie where we edited it the old-fashioned flatbed way with a moviola. That was No Justice, a movie where I was line producer on, and I was also casting director and co-star. That was edited the old-fashioned way, where we cut the negative and made actual 35 millimeter prints that we could show in theaters. So it cost my executive producer spent a fortune having it edited that way. That's a very expensive way to go about editing it. He actually hired an editor that had just worked on a Rutger Hauer movie. And so these editors, were from LA, and he had to fly them to Tennessee. He had to put them in a house and equip their house with all the movie equipment they needed to edit on a moviola. So he spent a fortune having that movie edited the old-fashioned way. Never want to. I would never I would never want to edit that way.
Now these days,
the only reason to edit that way is if you have a market and you have a need to make 35 millimeter prints, because you have, and then that means you'll probably be acting as your own distributor. But if you're going to, a lot of times, if you were going to do a deal with a distributor who was going to do you a combination of theatrical and home video release, like Vestron did a lot in the 80s, Vestron would do movies like Lair of the White Worm, where they would both do a video distribution and they would do a theatrical distribution. Well, for that means that Vestron is going to require you to have edited the movie on film and cut the negative, because they have to have that negative that they can make their 35 millimeter prints from. So to do a deal with a big boy like them, I mean, my friend Buddy Cooper, who made the movie The Mutilator, he had to do that. He had to cut the movie on film, and he had to cut the negative and make prints, because he did a few theatrical planes, and then he also licensed the movie to a company that gave him a 6-figure deal, and they would not have done that if he hadn't had a cut negative. So I'm just glad you don't have to deal with that anymore, because cutting the negative and editing that way is just prohibitively expensive for most people.
Yeah, I've told myself I'll never shoot on film again. Never.
No, I don't plan to either.
All right.
It's a nightmare.
Yes, it is, and young people don't even realize how good they have it. So yeah, it's so. Any last words? Anything that you would like to? I know you've promoted stuff, but anything else you would like to promote before we go? Any last words for people?
Well, I did this comic book last year, which is the Debbie Does Demons comic book, and so it's available from my publisher in England, which is called Demon Comics, and you can order that from my artist Paul P.J. Johnson on Facebook. Just go to Paul P.J. Johnson's page, and you can order the comic book version of Debbie Does Demons. The comic book is where we went wild and have all these scenes that we couldn't do for the movie, either scenes that we couldn't do because of budget, or taking our scenes to limits that we wouldn't even dare ask our actors to do. So for the comic, we really go beyond anything you'll see in a movie. The comic is like the batshit version of the movie that the movie couldn't quite be.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. But that'd be fun to have. So I love getting stuff like that, where stuff is just crazy, like
the comic book is definitely crazy. So
yeah. Did you ever read the Jaws 2 comic that came out, like when the movie originally came out?
No.
Yeah, the shark is like super shark, like it's ripping out of water and grabbing people off boats, and it's so much crazier than the movie is. But I remember looking at it as a kid. I don't have it anymore, but yeah, that is novelizations and comic books are the way to go if you really want to expand on stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of movies I went to where when I bought my ticket, they gave me a comic book, and I wish I still had those comics. The best one is when I saw A Million Years BC with Raquel Welch at a theater, I believe in '67. They gave me a little comic book when I bought my ticket, and I sure wish I had it. I can't even find anyone online that has it. So this comic book must be one of the rarest comics in the world. I can't ever find even anyone on eBay selling one of them. But I had one. I just was stupid enough and I didn't keep track of it and I lost it. And then also in '78 I went to see this movie called The Giant Spider Invasion, and they also gave me a comic book when I bought my ticket, and I don't have that one either. So I'm just terrible about not keeping track of these comic books. On the other hand, movie theaters always used to give movie calendars to you when you bought a ticket, at least not in the big cities, but all the small town theaters near where I live, they always, from the 60s until like the 20 years ago, they would usually give you a nice movie calendar when you bought your ticket that would have all the month's movies in picture form on this calendar. And so I kept every single one of those I ever picked up from the mid 60s to when they stopped giving them out. In fact, there is still one theater in Nashville that still does movie calendars, the Belcourt Theater. That is the coolest movie theater in Nashville. That's where they recently showed Fulci's The Beyond, and they showed Suspiria in 2 different versions. And, you know, all the cool movies, if they're showing in Nashville, they're showing at the Belcourt. The Belcourt still gives out movie calendars, and they give out the fanciest movie calendars you've ever seen. They're like open up movie calendars that are like 6 pages.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think I know the ones that you're referring to, because you put those up on Facebook. Like you would have the New Beverly, and then it would list all the movies and have like the posters and the times and the dates.
Yeah,
and then
those
you
are
could
all the
flip it.
one-page movie calendars. And so, yeah, I put those up, but I haven't ever put the Belcourt ones up because since they're 6-page calendars, they're too to be difficult to upload to Facebook. But I try to scan all of my calendars from the 60s to, you know, when they stopped doing it, and put as many of them as I can on Facebook. So I have quite a lot on my pages. If people go into my photo galleries, they can see them.
Yeah, it's cool that you do that. So yeah, people check that out. It's fun. All right, Donald. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope that we could do it again. And maybe for something new that's coming up, or even something older. I'd like to know a lot more about Cannibal Cop and some of these other films. So if you're up for coming back down the road, you know, that'd be great.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for being here. And um, this will be up shortly. So everybody check it out. Check out Donald Farmer's films, and I'll add some links to the, you know, to the description area down below, and we'll do stuff like that. So all right, Donald, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. So bye, everybody. Bye.
All
See
right.
you on the next one.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I'm going to